Before we begin today's episode, I would like to take a moment to dedicate this episode to my godmother, who was a cornerstone in my musical development as well as other things, of course. So let's have some fun today in memory of my auntie. Well, hey there, oldies. Welcome to That Old Soul Show, or as I like to call it, TOSS for short. I'm your host, Sarah, here to take you on a nostalgic joyride where timeless tunes meet visionary views. Each week, we're diving deep into the sounds that move us, the videos that lit up our screens, and the artful films that made us feel something. This is the show for the old souls with fresh takes, celebrating everything from timeless classics to groundbreaking visuals and cinematic masterpieces that push boundaries. So, grab your headphones, turn up the volume, and let's vibe through the rhythms, reels, and stories that make life unforgettable. Welcome to That Old Soul Show. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for being here. We are on episode 3. I'm really excited to be here with you guys and show up every week and just talk about music and movies and just fun stuff. And this has really been a joy for me. And so if you've made it this far, I'm really grateful that you're here. So before we jump into today's topic, let's do a little trivia. So this question is for the film buffs. In which Disney animated film did Hans Zimmer compose the iconic score, winning him an Academy Award? Was it Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, or Beauty and the Beast? The answer will be revealed at the end. So let's move over to our next segment. But before we do that, I must tune in with y'all on what I've been watching lately and listening to. So first up is Love is Blind. Okay, I have to admit, I have finally been bit by the Love is Blind bug. And that's basically because I watched this compilation of all this like messiness from the previous season on YouTube. It just randomly showed up in my algorithm. And so I watched it. And then, I don't know, I just had to know more of the tea. I just needed to know what was up. So I didn't start at the first season. I started with season 7, and I instantly fell in love with Ashley and Tyler, and I was rooting for them the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, they're super cute, super, super cute. But I definitely have gone back and I've watched season 6, and I think I need to start season 5. I'm going to do it backwards all the way to the first one. I don't know why I'm doing it that way, but it's just something I started doing. But I would definitely recommend it if you're really into reality TV. The other thing that I watched, I've also been on a documentary kick. And of course, one of the documentaries I watched was Megan's documentary, in her own words. And oh man, I was crying. She had me crying. I knew the story of her mom and I knew that her mom had passed, but I guess I didn't really know, like most people, I didn't really know the full story, and it really broke my heart. Anytime someone mentions losing a parent, my heart goes out to them completely. I mean, I am blessed to not have experienced that myself, but I have lost a loved one, so I do know what that feels like. And I'm not going to get into my opinions on the case part, but I can relate to her more so now on a traumatic event involving a metal dart. Now, what I've been listening to, Heart of a Woman by Summer Walker, has been on repeat. Okay. This song brings me back to like the later 90s, early 2000s R&B, and I am obsessed. She also has been releasing a lot of like single packs for this song in particular, and some of them are cool, cute. I'm not super crazy about the sped up version. I understand why it's there, but not my favorite. The instrumental though, yeah. I love when an artist releases the instrumental because I feel like if you are an artist, you can flex your own pen and like rewrite some lyrics to it, play around with it and just kind of release it in a, non-monetary kind of way, but just flex your pen, see what you can do with it, or even just sing karaoke to it. Another song I've been loving is Smoke by Ari Lennox. So, little thing about me, right? I have this revenge playlist. That is what it's called, the revenge playlist. But I listen to it when I'm angry or upset or just in the feels and I, want to shut off and just go to my own little world. So I added this song because the I might just slap a in the face is accurate on a lot of days. Although I would never actually put my hands on somebody because I have too many great things to accomplish in life, and some people just aren't worth it. But this song makes me feel like I could. And the music video, oh, if y'all haven't watched that, go on over and lay your eyes on it because I love it. We'll do more of a deep dive on it a little bit later on another episode, but I love the mental institution aesthetic, which sounds weird to say. And although it's quite serious, but she uses it in a non-literal sense, right? And so in the thing, she escapes and then she has a little mild dance break. So yeah, definitely go check that out if you haven't watched it. Another song that I'm really into is Precious Cargo by Kaylin Mary. Love her, know her personally. Well, in passing, I should say. I mean, I have worked with her before, but I don't know her like that. But I love her music. So hey, Kaylin, if you're watching this. But I love how you think the song is going to be slow and then she's like, psych, and the beat drops. Ooh, baby. Ooh, it's a vibe. The video is cute. It's also really simple. And I appreciated that the song is also simple as well, although not really when you think about it structurally, but in the sense of the music video, she didn't have to do a lot for this video. And so for this song rather. And so definitely go check that out. And the last song that I've been listening to or re-listening to, because I recently rediscovered it when I was at my grandma's house just hanging out, is Put Your Head on My Shoulder by Paul Anka. Now, you might know this song because it has been sampled. By who, you may ask? Well, none other than Doja Cat and her song Straight. So, if you've seen the music video, it's the song that starts in the beginning of the music video, the da, 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 So great song. That is what I have been tuning into. And so now it's time to move on to our next segment where we are going to spin the record back and answer the question, does the camera really add 10 pounds? The idea that the camera adds 10 pounds comes from a few technical things that can change the way someone looks on screen. So I will try my best as a filmmaker not to get super techie on y'all, because I myself am not super, super techie. Like, I know it and understand it, but I'm a producer and a writer at heart. I leave the camera work to the DP. Those are some spectacularly brilliant people, okay? Much love to all the cinematographers out there. So, essentially, what adds 10 pounds is the camera lens and camera angle. So I'm going to break them up. We're going to start with the lenses. So a wide angle lens can cause distortion, making someone appear a little bit wider, and especially if they're super close to the camera, and it can make you look heavier, bigger cheeks, bigger belly, midsection, kind of like the whole don't wear horizontal stripes that the what not to wear people used to always tell us, if you've ever watched that show. So on the flip, a low angle shot can also make a subject look larger. All right, while a high angle tends to make someone look slimmer. Think about it like you're taking a selfie with your phone and you're raising it up above your head so it makes your face look slimmer. Also, you're going to take into account that lighting and shadows do play a role. Some harsh lighting can create unwanted shadows, which exaggerate the contours, adding a bunch of volume to your face and body. Similar to contour for makeup. That way you can make them cheekbones look chiseled and chic, something like that. Now, to kind of mitigate these effects, if you will, photographers or filmmakers will often use a longer focal length. And you're like, oh my God, focal length, big word, what is that? Essentially, the length of the lens, right? So you can either have like an 85 milliliter, I just said milliliter, millimeter is what I meant. So 85 millimeter and above, and controlling the lighting will produce a more flattering, true to life image. Now, the choice of camera lenses and angles significantly affects how a subject appears on camera. Of course, influencing the weight, proportions, and the overall mood or tone of the image. So let's dive a little deeper into those lenses and angles and how they impact the appearance. So lens types and focal lengths. So again, the wide angle lens, this is 14 to about 35 millimeters. And they're great for if you want to distort certain things. Think of what's his name? Pirates of the Caribbean guy. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That film right there plays a lot with distortion. His name will come to me. Captain Jack Sparrow, what is your name? We won't worry about it. But if you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. But anyway, if a person is super close to the lens, their features will appear stretched out or wider than they are, which of course adds to this 10-pound effect. So these lenses aren't commonly used for landscapes. That's why they're really not the best for people. Because, of course, nobody wants to look rounder and wider. Now, the standard lens will come in your Canon, your Nikon, just regular standard lens. It will closely mimic how the human eye sees things. So this focal length is great if you want a more balanced and normal view because it doesn't really change too much. Now, the way to look like a skinny mini me is a telephoto lens. This is 85 and up. So this compresses space and it creates that flattering look that, narrows everything, chiseled facial features, body parts. It smooths out the appearance, okay? Makes you look slimmer, makes your contour look even better, if you get what I'm saying. So these lenses will be used primarily, you'll see them used on red carpets. Check the Getty, right? Moving on to camera angles. So camera angles and perspective also play a major role in making you not look like you've gained 10 pounds. So a low angle is when the camera is positioned below a person. It can make them look taller, more dominant, but also sometimes slightly larger. Now, this angle emphasizes the lower half of the face or body, which creates a more imposing appearance and often adds some kind of little bit of weight to the frame. Think of it a different way. Low angles can sometimes show dominance between a character and another character, like if we're in a film scene, right? Let's set the scene. We've got a mob boss and he's looking down, right, on one of his workers, but the worker is looking up at him, right? And it creates this dynamic, okay? That goes into the high angle. If we're shooting from a high angle, that can have more of a slimming effect. It emphasizes the upper part of the head and narrows the shoulders and the body, often making the person look smaller, which is what we want. More delicate, more dainty-like. This angle also creates a sense of vulnerability or even openness. Now, the last angle is the eye level angle. It's just capturing a person straight on, just super neutral, nothing crazy. It has a more balanced look, similar to the standard lens. It's not exaggerating any features, and it's ideal for creating that natural look. So now, with all this new information and understanding of angles and lenses that I just threw at you, what happens if we combine them? If you combined a wide angle lens with a low angle, that can make it super, super distorted, making someone look 10 pounds bigger, right? But on the flip side, if you were to combine a telephoto lens with a high angle, now that, super flattering, super slimming, reducing distortion, and of course, making someone look taller and chiseling their body. So in conclusion, now you understand the relationship between lens types and camera angles. So now you know how a photographer on the red carpet or even a filmmaker can control how a person looks on screen, either by enhancing natural proportions or creating dramatic effects that add or reduce weight. So basically saying the camera can add 10 pounds if the lens is less than 85, but honestly, I wouldn't let it stop you from eating pizza. Just enjoy that slice, honey. I hope you enjoyed this segment. Now that we've spun the record back, it's time to move into our main segment of the day. This is where the fun happens, the old soul segment. So moving on to today's old soul topic, it's all about the albums that I was discovering or bump into when I was a younger girl. But obviously, I still listen to some of these albums today. The music in our adolescence is what really defines the music that we listen to when we get older. And so for me, I had to take a step back and think about what it was that I was really listening to and how that transformed me into what I listen to today. Now, of course, today primarily, I do tend to sway more towards R&B, as you noticed probably earlier in the tune in segment, but I dibbled and dabbled. I mean, I had, like in middle school, I had my emo phase where I was listening to Fall Out Boy and, oh my God, still love them to this day. My Chemical Romance, mindless self-indulgence. Like I had my emo moment. I go back even further. I had my country moment, you know, Johnny Cash, George Strait, all these people. And I had my jazz moments. Like I really had to sit back and think about it. And of course, narrowing down my albums that I really wanted to discuss today was a bit challenging. And some that didn't make the list, I think I'll still talk about at a later point in time. But I really had to pick the good ones. You know what I mean? Like the ones that I still kind of listen to today, even if I don't listen to them all the way through from track one to the end, but ones that I definitely remember being a moment and maybe even having a connection to that in a way that will never leave me, right? So when I was making my list and I was re-listening to these albums, they certainly had a different effect on me today than they did years ago, right? Naturally. The lyrics meant something different. The melodies felt more prominent. And today, as we go through each album, they're going to be in different categories that I'm going to talk about. We're going to talk about the songwriting, the lyrics, the vocals, obviously the vocals, right? The replay value, the album artwork, or even imagery, and I'll touch a little bit on production. I may not hit every single one for every single album, but majority of them will stick out. Now, of course, the first one that we have to dig into, and I probably should have saved her for last because she is just queen, and y'all are probably going to get so sick of me talking about her, but I love this woman down, right? I love her. She was a defining artist for me growing up. And that, of course, is Mariah Carey. And the album I chose to talk about specifically today is Charm Bracelet. Now, of course, she was and still is the definition of glamour to me, right? Like, she is what I think about. She is, maybe to me, she is my Marilyn Monroe, right? for my childhood. I understand everyone is not going to agree with that, and that is okay. I will die on this hill. I will die a happy lamb. Okay? I will die a happy lamb. One day she's going to have her own dedicated episode, and just spoiler alert, throwing that out there. But anyway, for Charm Bracelet in particular, one of the reasons that this album and Mariah Carey in general really stuck out to me was because she looks like me. It was like she was the first person that I saw who looked like me, and that was huge. Being a biracial Black woman, that was huge for me. And the album in particular, I love the melodies. I love how she mixes hip hop and R&B. I love the background vocals. Oh my goodness, the background vocals. I love the subtleties and the production, like the birds chirping in Sunflowers for Alfred Roy, her father. Oh my word. When I wrote a song a few months back, and I imagine putting birds at the beginning of it because there's just something so, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's spiritual. It sets the tone, and something you're going to hear me say a lot, and it's really why I chose the albums that I did for this episode. I am a storyteller at heart. I've been writing stories and poems and songs and scripts since I was a little kid. And so storytelling is at my core, and that is what I gravitate towards. So you're going to hear storytelling brought up a lot in today's episode. And her storytelling in this album, from first track to end, it's like we start off super hopeful with love, and then the second half of the album was just heartbreak and disappointment and grief and processing and healing all at the same time. And the songwriting and the lyrics, some of those songs feels like you're hearing her just read her diary, because she's being so vulnerable and open and maybe a little afraid, but not letting us see it within the vulnerability. She's taking risks, right? Her vocals, I mean, they're always top tier. I don't really need to sit here and blab on to you guys much more about her vocals, but her tone and inflections bring you into the story she's telling. I remember the very first song that I heard that made me love her was Through the Rain. And I was like, I have to learn this song. And it was like the first song I learned how to sing. And it made me feel something, right? And that's what this is about. But the way she sings really brings you into the story she's telling. And of course, the replay value, it's definitely not my favorite Mariah Carey album. I would say it's in my top 5, but I do have a few standout tracks. Of course, Through the Rain, as I mentioned. I love Yours. I love the layers within the 5 minutes. It just feels like she just went into the booth and just played around, which I often do. And I suggest to anybody who's musically inclined, just play, just have fun. And then last but not least, I really enjoy Clown. I think that is just a fun song. So if we get into the visuals, let's dive into Through the Rain's visual first. It's adding another layer of storytelling. And of course, it connected me even more to her. I believe I was about, I don't know, I think 6 years old at the time when the album came out. I believe it was 2002. The visual itself centers around an interracial marriage, or love rather. And, I obviously connect to that. And I love how we get this whole story, and the girl leaves and she's following this man, and it's just a beautiful story. And Mariah Carey singing in the rain is always just pretty to me. I don't know. Also just a filmmaker little thing I just like. The other visual that I really like is Boy, I Need You. It's a super fun visual. It's Asian inspired. It's very colorful. I would say even very futuristic, ahead of its time, for that time. And I think a lot of people these days have even dabbled into the Asian influences, like Gwen Stefani and Megan Thee Stallion has even done that. So it's really fun to see. It's really fun to see different influences and being able to put those in your art. Moving on to the second album, we're going to move over to some country. Yay, I know, I hear all the moans and groans in the back. Now, As I'm sure y'all all are aware, I am a Texan. So when I think about this album for me represents the windows rolled down, and I'm in the passenger seat of my dad's Chevy driving to school in the morning, and life was just simple. I love country music, okay? And I will never understand why some people don't like country music. And I actually wouldn't mind. I would actually love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Why do you not like country music? What is it about country music that you just it just you can't, it's nails on a chalkboard for you, right? I genuinely want to know. I feel like I ask a lot of people that question and I'm never able to get an answer, like a true answer. And if you just don't like it, you just don't like it, and I get that, but I don't know, I need more, right? So please let me know in the comments. Also, of course, remain respectful. Art is art. But yeah, so I definitely will say that I had my non-country moment. Like when I got to about middle school age, I was taking over the radio station and I was like, all right, Dad, we're not doing this. I want to listen to pop. And so we did. But I came back to country. It's like you kind of just always come back to your roots in a way. But what album am I talking about? Like I mentioned earlier and have mentioned before and will mention again, and unapologetically Texan, it's almost like sacred Texan. It's not right to not listen to this man. Like, if you don't listen to the King of Country, respectfully, I don't know if I can trust you. No, I'm just kidding. Who I'm talking about is George Strait, and the album I'm talking about is Troubadour. This album was in my headphones on repeat. He's just easy to listen to. He's got a beautiful voice. He doesn't really have to do too much. He's got that storytelling quality in his tone that really pulls you in, and it's what you need to be a great country singer, in my opinion. As far as the lyrics go, when I think about this album and what it represents for me, it's fun, it's reflective, it's solid storytelling from a solid country album, what you would expect. You know, when I was re-listening to it for this episode, now that I'm older, some of those lyrics I didn't understand, of course, right? You're just vibing to a good beat, a groove. And that's why I say it's reflective. It's, the song about Johnny Cash, and I knew who Johnny Cash was, but I guess at the time I didn't know he had passed. And so that song, I was singing it and I didn't know what I was singing. It's a whole thing, right? But it's the lyrics. They're in the best way possible all over the place. It's what you expect from a good album. You get the sadness, you get the fun, you get the joy, you get the tears, you get everything. Now, of course, the album artwork, very simple, just a headshot of him with a cowboy hat on, looking off into the distance. What more do you need? Says everything. Button it, signed, sealed, delivered, send it off. Now, as far as the replay value, I would say I don't listen to this album solely on its own as much as I did growing up, mainly because of streaming. And now I can just go on Apple and pull up a George Strait playlist, and it's got all of his hits on there. And if I want a particular song that isn't on the mix, I'll just go and find it. But it's still definitely one of my favorite albums from him. I think the other day he recently released another album and I was like, "What? Sir, I wasn't expecting this, but I'm so happy. I'm so happy you did that. Thank you." And it's really good, by the way. You should go listen to it. Now, I have quite a few favorite tracks off of this album. Of course, the title track, Troubadour. It's the opening song, and it really sets the tone for the whole album. River of Love is a vibe, okay? Makes me want to go drink margaritas on a beach. House of Cash, that's the one I was telling you about earlier. That was the song about Johnny Cash, and it was sad, but I didn't know it was Oh man, there's so many I like on here. When You're in Love and A House with No Doors. Now, if you're gonna get anything from George Strait, it's gonna be wisdom. Okay, there's a lot of wisdom in a lot of his songs, and House with No Doors is certainly one of them. Now, a little humble brag. I have been able to see him twice in concert, and I'm hoping to see him a third time in the near future. He's just fun. He's just fun to see. He's a great performer. And yeah, I'm hoping to see him again soon. Moving on to my third choice of the albums that cultivated my sound, you could say. Now, a lot of these, of course, are going to be in middle school. Why? Because in that age, that's where you really pick the music that you kind of listen to for the rest of your life in a way. So I was about 11, 12, 13, somewhere around in there. And I discovered Frank by Amy Winehouse. Woo, we got to talk about it. We got to talk about it. Amy Winehouse, listen, Jim, taken too soon. It's sidebar, quite amusing. I remember growing up, right? Would listen to her blaring it in my room. One of my parents, I won't name, love you. One of my parents didn't really care for her tone of voice. And, you know, just didn't really think she was that great of a singer. Fast forward to a couple months ago when they're telling me I need to watch the biopic. And they're in love with this one song and they are now hooked and they like that film. And it just hilarious, hilarious. So I remember I was probably a little too young to be listening to F Me Pump. I didn't know what I was singing, but I was screaming it, singing it, blaring it at the top of my lungs. Of course, no idea what I was singing about. See, genuinely, I would sing it when no one was around, right? Because of the vulgar language. And of course, I thought I was cool because I was like, hee hee, and I'm cussing and I'm young. You think you're cool. But I just thought it was cool. And I loved singing along with her. I also remember the day she died. I went to a soccer camp, and before we headed home, we went to a Asian buffet, and I saw it on the news, and I was no longer hungry. Like I couldn't finish my food. I'd eaten, I think, if I remember, maybe I'd eaten a little bit. I hope I did, but I was definitely very sad. Now we're gonna start with the album artwork first for this one, just because we'll go into more of it, but the album artwork is very wholesome, fun. It's a little aloof, and she's like going with the wind kind of vibe, right? Then we get into the songwriting and the lyrics, okay? She's honest, bold. She's got like this stream of consciousness kind of flow. It's almost like she too, like Mariah, reading her diary out loud. I would say lyrically, she's probably one of my favorite writers, like favorite singers. And the way she just put words together is just amazing. I love it, right? Now, for the production, I love her use of like this big band sound, very jazzy, the scatting. And if I can think of anyone who's currently doing that, I would say Ray is doing that right now. And I'm so happy Ray is finally getting her flowers. And this might be another episode in the making, but like the British baddies got me in a chokehold. Like, ugh, there's so many. There's so many. But back to Amy, Miss Winehouse. Her vocals, listen, the tone was just raspy, raw. There's pain, there's betrayal in her voice. There's also a little bit of flirtation and wit, As far as replay value, this album definitely gets played a lot for me, and even her Back to Black album, but Frank is my all-time favorite. I some of my favorite songs are You Sent Me Flying, Cherry, F Me Pumps, of course, and What Is It About Men? Now, she did make a few music videos, And for this album in particular, Stronger Than Me, I watch that and I think, okay, this was 14 years ago and it was pretty nuanced in terms of camera and special effects, like the point of view shots, POV shots, if you will. When her date is like super drunk and super out of his mind, we are like physically put in his lens, like his frame of mind, and we think we're drunk. The room is spinning. It's just, it's all these things. And then we change locations to like outside his apartment, I'm assuming. And I don't know why for a second I thought she was gonna like leave him there or rob him, but I think that just shows how dark my mind can get. I write thrillers, just FYI. So my mind is pretty dark. But I love the music video. I love Amy Winehouse. I yeah, I love to sing her songs. It's just, she's a joy. And again, it goes back to that storytelling aspect, and she's why she made it on the list. She herself is why she made it on my list. Moving on to our fourth one. This one should come as no surprise. I think I've mentioned her before. Etta James can do no wrong in my book. And while I have an album from her that I listen to called The Chess Box, which is a culmination of a lot of her albums, I chose At Last in particular. Now, I knew about Miss Etta James before Cadillac Records came out, the movie, the biopic, the the film. I don't really remember how I discovered her unless it started with like At Last in a movie or at a wedding, or maybe I later looked up the song. But I gotta tell you, I instantly fell in love with her voice and her sound. I mean, her vocals are just raspy and raw, and I like her because she's not trying to sing pretty. Because why? Well, pain ain't pretty. Pain ain't pretty, okay? Although there can be beauty in pain, but pain isn't pretty, right? And you can feel that in her voice. You can hear it. It envelops you, like it wraps around you so tightly. As far as the production, now it's groovy, baby. It's groovy. Some of her songs will put me in a sexy, sultry mood, like If I Can't Have You, or even a sassy vibe, like I Just Want to Make Love to You. Mm. Now, based on the title of some of those tracks, it might sound backwards, is what I'm trying to say. But it's the way the melodies and the instruments carry it, and not so much the lyrics. Although, yes, the way she sings those songs, even in the duet songs, often complements the lyrics or can contrast with them in an interesting way. Now, as far as the album artwork, mm, iconic. Iconic, okay? I feel like when you see the cover for At Last, even without the title, you know what the album is. It's the classic and specific type of like mustard yellow and the side profile with her beautiful blonde updo. Baby. Mm. Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. Now, of course, it's not really any music videos, you could say, but another reason why I love her so much, every performance that I have been able to find on YouTube, it's like she never sang the same song the same way. It was always a different arrangement. It was really what she was feeling that day. That's what would come through. Like, uh, I don't know. She's on my list of like who I would love to see if I could go back to that time period. She's top of my list. Top. As far as replay value, this definitely gets replayed, obviously. Whenever I need a break from trap, rap, booty shaking music, you know what I mean? You have those moments. I would even go so far as to say that this album, or Etta in general, is like my Saturday cleaning music. And I just live by it. lastly, some of my favorite songs on this album are Dear Starling, A Sunday Kind of Love. I mean, honestly, the whole album, really, this this is like a no skip album for me. So really, I all of them, all of the above. And then last but not least, number 5, we have a gospel album. Now, why gospel? Well, when I was younger, I went to a private Christian school. And so it did what it did, right? I love gospel music. Sometimes you need a little bit of encouragement. And the album I'm talking about in particular is Thankful by Mary. This album is fun to listen to, okay? It's a break from, a hymnal book. And there's nothing wrong with hymns. I'm not saying, oh my God, no. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that. But it's a vibe. It puts you in a place where you take the shackles off your feet so you can dance. You know what I mean? The lyrics are very simple, but they say everything you need to hear in that moment. In particular, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me, from Can't Give Up Now. They're vulnerable when needed, and they're empowering when needed. That is gospel music, right? And that's why it made it on the list. It's that light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. It's the thing that keeps you going. When I was listening back to this album, I forgot that Destiny's Child was featured. And so that was a nice little treat when I was listening to it and like, okay, I didn't know that. That's cool. I forgot about that. Now, as far as the production, I have to credit their use of auto-tune. I think it's because it's used very stylized, very stylishly, very tastefully, and not super overdone. Now, some of my favorite tracks are I Sing featuring BBJ, Shackles, of course. Now that was on repeat in the car going home from school. That was the how was school today? And then you turn it on, you're just happier. I listen to that now and I instantly get happier. If you ever just get this. Okay, we'll say it like this. If you're having a bad day, put that song on. I'm telling you right now, you will feel uplifted after you hear that. Another song, of course, Can't Give Up Now, because yeah, again, encouragement. And Wade in the Water. Now, replay value, obviously I'm not listening to this every day. This album is very uplifting, very encouraging, and it's there when you need a reminder. Now, when I was in college, Mary and Tamala Mann got me through some of them hard exams some of the hardest exams I've ever had to take in my entire life, right? You can study all day, but the anxiety is still there. And so listening to gospel music just helped me out. And that's why it's one of the albums that raised me and cultivated my music taste. So that were my top 5. And I hope that you liked some of these picks. And I hope that maybe I even nudged you a little to listen to some albums that you hadn't thought to listen to, or maybe haven't, take that vinyl out, blow off the dust and put it on there and spin it. Give it a minute. Well, that's a wrap, oldies. Today we explored country, blues, gospel, hip-hop, and R&B. What albums would you say raised you and cultivated your music taste? Let me know in the comments below. And before I forget, let's find out the answer to today's trivia question. Again, the question was, in which Disney animated film did Hans Zimmer compose the iconic score, winning him an Academy Award for Best Original Score? Well, if you guessed The Lion King, you would be correct. Thank you again so much for joining me on That Old Soul Show, the show for the old souls with fresh takes. If you loved today's episode and you'd like to support the show so that we can continue to bring you new and free content, I've set up an account on Buy Me a Coffee. Through this easy-to-use donation-based tool, you can support the podcast with monetary donations in increments of $5. So pretty please head on over to buymeacoffee.com/toss podcast. That is TOSS podcast. I truly appreciate your support. Bye for now, oldies.